The Seattle Mariners fall to New York Yankees in a series that just didn't go their way. Hopefully it changes when they go on the road. We'll talk about it right here on Hold My Trident.
Baseball stuff!
One of these days, I'm just going to record the background when this intro's playing and Gavin and Chad are just jamming and doing air drums and play it for you during them when they have no idea. Because you should see that. That is a great view that I have while we're sitting through that intro. Hoverlone, welcome on in to Hold My Trident, a Seattle Mariners podcast. And although we're excited, although we're talking, we're happy to be together. It's not because the Mariners are looking too hot. A losing record heading into their first losing trip. I mean, let's be honest, 3-4. That's usually where they sit after the first 7 games of the regular season. If you go back to them like the last 3-4 years, it's exactly been that way. But we're going to dive into the entire series as we got a chance to not really meet up over the last couple days, losing to the New York Yankees 2-1. We're going to talk about the middle of the order troubles as well. And then, of course, Colt Emerson gets extended. That's some big news that we get to talk about all on this loaded episode of Hold My Trident. Emily joining the show. Welcome on in. Love your new mic, your new camera setup. Looking awesome. I'm going to start with you first since you got the setup ready to roll. Take me through the Mariners losing this series to the Yankees. You can start wherever you want on this one because it's been obviously a loaded slate of how amazing the Mariners looked in this one.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'm just want to go back to, I'm so glad that Cal at least got that walk-off in game 1 because you got to hope that that'll help him somewhat build confidence. I wouldn't say that he's looked great since or even through that game, but that was good. He had a good moment today. But ultimately, I mean, I think the biggest elephant in the room is the fact that the heart of our order just looks pretty terrible right now. And, you know, they're all guys who are experienced enough that, you know, they're not going to stay there. But it's just been so freaking frustrating to watch because these are guys you don't really expect that from. You don't expect that all of them are going to have it at the same time. We do know that Julio tends to have a slow start. We all kind of hope that wouldn't be the case with the World Baseball Classic and having a little bit more time to warm up and play some meaningful baseball earlier on. Yet here we are. We're April 1st, and he looks like April Julio. So, but you don't necessarily expect that as much from guys like Josh and Cal, but here we are. They're doing that. I was just looking at the box score because I had this saved for a video, but Brendan Donovan's sitting with a .417 batting average and a 1.283 OPS. So you want to talk about a guy that, yes, he had some massive defensive blunders today. You know, he looked kind of, there was a comparison, I can't remember who tweeted it, about like whether he or Jorge Polanco looked worse at third base for the start of the year compared to last year. But at least offensively, he is everything that you hoped he would be and more. I don't think anybody pegged him for having hit 2 homers in the first homestand of the season. So, yeah.
Chad, where's your woes feeling? Where's your woes feeling? Look, for the record, Brendan Donovan, I'm all for it. And I kind of expected a little bit of blunders from third base, maybe not this many, but some as he gets used to this position that he hardly played in baseball. But overall, I am very ecstatic what Brendan Donovan's looked like so far. But you know me, I've been like the true tired and true player of saying, hey, look, this guy's going to really excel on the Mariners this year. I've been more excited. It's like the way to my fandoms come in. But your overall take, Chad, what's your take on the Mariners right now?
Well, I mean, it's tough when you're 3-4 hitter. I think it's like 3 for 53 during that series. So, and all 3 of them were singles. So production there in the heart of your lineup, you're just not going to win ball games generally with that kind of production. And at the same time, you got to look at, I mean, the other team, you got playing the New York Yankees. You got to look at the guys you're facing. You got Cam Schlittler. I always say his name wrong.
There was a whole Twitter joke going on about that today. You're not alone.
Yeah, no worries. And then Max Fried. I know I can get that name right because that name's strong. So you got to remember the pitchers you're going up against. Those are some really nasty pitchers. So I wasn't too surprised to see us kind of go. I mean, we played close ball games. I just wasn't surprised really seeing that because the middle of our lineup isn't supporting. But I tell you what, Cole Young's fun to watch.
Yeah, he's really fun to watch.
And Don Canzone is legit. Second half last year was not a fluke.
Which I hope that's the case. And I hope Luke Raley continues as well with his, hopefully he stays healthy. And if that's the case, and these guys that are not expected to do as well as they are, like, over 110 WRC plus heading into the end of the season, if those bottom of the order guys can do that, and then all of a sudden, the ones that you expect to take off, the Julios, the Joshes, Cals, this is a team that obviously gives you that expectation back of they're going to the World Series. Gavin, let me throw this at you, because this is something that I don't know if you want to say I'm superstitious. I don't know if you want to say that's the case, but heading into the opening series against the Guardians, all they talked about in the first couple games, whether it was on the Mariners broadcast, the Apple TV broadcast, we were all over the place in that first series. They kept talking about how the expectations were so high for this team, how World Series expectations, they kept saying the word, they kept saying the buzzword, World Series, over and over again. It felt like a jinx. And then they come off the gates and they go 3-4 after their home series. Do you feel like that's something where maybe they were just, thinking a little too hard, thinking a little ahead, or is this just something we need to slow the brakes on? It's only 7 games into the 162.
Yeah, I'll lean on the side of maybe pump the brakes, because I came into this season, first of all, as a Mariners fan, you're just numb to the fact of just dull baseball for the first month and a half. Like we've seen it year in and year out. Even the years that they make the postseason, you just don't see a very extravagant March and April, and I'm okay with that. However, it's still disappointing to see. It's losing's harder to take than it is to enjoy a win. What's the famous Moneyball? I like winning
more than I like to win.
There it is. Yeah. I hate to lose more than I like to win. And that's my mentality ever since, being a Mariners fan, I guess, is just, we're so hungry for a World Series, but it's the longevity of it all. It's keeping yourself under composure as a fan, because you're seeing it from Dan Wilson. You're seeing not too high, not too low. It is disappointing to see. I'll beat the same drum and say it is disappointing to see the middle of the order having the struggles that they have. But more importantly, Cal having, the walk-off home, or the walk-off hit the other night, and then also having the double, or sorry, it was a single for 2 runs earlier today, starting to have clutch moments, which is great. But from the World Baseball Classic into the season, you're just hoping that, okay, hopefully this slump isn't for too long. I wish Dan would do something about that, change where he's at in the order, mix it up a little bit. Like baseball, as you mentioned, superstitious. It's all about, seats are hot, and you just do weird things. You mess with the lineup early in the season. We're early in the season. Right now is a really good time to, hey, let's move you down in the lineup. Let's move you to DH one game so you can just focus on hitting, and hopefully you're getting pumped fastballs. And that's it. And just focus on trying to hit the baseball. It does look like they're attacking him very meticulously up in the upper corner. With most of the guys that throw harder or have a good cutter, they're attacking that top inside corner when he's batting left-handed. So he also has to kind of buy into making adjustments, knowing that most of these guys are probably going to attack up there. But yes, it is a long season. We've seen Julio's stats in the month of April as he's been a major leaguer. They're not fun stats to look at. So expectation is still okay. We're seeing great things from guys like Dom Canzone, guys like Cole Young. They're stepping up. Brendan Donovan is hitting the baseball exceptionally well. And that's another topic that we'll get into later on, this whole Colt Emerson deal. And what I know that's probably the hottest topic in all of Mariners baseball, especially with 2 losses back to back. But this team, you're starting to find pieces that are going to surround a very, very good middle of the order once that middle of the order starts to hit. I'm not super worried. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I hear you 100%. But like, maybe is this not the worst thing in the world? And let me hear what I mean by that is, look, Julio and Cal and Josh, obviously we all think they're going to figure it out at some point in time. But that's the only thing we can really pinpoint as a true problem after 7 games. The bullpen has surprisingly looked good. The rotation, first time through the order looked good. Gilbert had a little bit of a rough go in the middle of the series last time. I know that we've been talking offline about, was some of the hits actually his fault, his reasonings. Gavin, you and I were talking about that on the side about the game on on Tuesday and talking about the hit that just went past Naylor, the one that just went into the outfield and then caused an early lead for the Yankees. And you kind of gave a thought process that I thought that really needed to be put on this podcast about if he wants to become the ace, he's got to be able to stop things like that. Can you kind of explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, and the light fly ball into the outfield, and the ball that just gets by Naylor, and Naylor, it looked like he was playing just off the bag, and he wasn't giving an effort to go back to it. And I'm not faulting the guy. It's 162 games. I don't need you bleeding on game 5 or 6 of the year. But yeah, if you're going to be the number one on this staff, which is chock full of good talent, you would be considered the ace. And if you're going to be the ace on this staff, yeah, you need some put away pitches. You need to be able to put guys away when things start to go awry. If you let off, if you give that guy a base hit, or if you give up one of those walks, it's now on you to close out the inning without letting that guy score. Don't even let them put the ball in play. Have the wherewithal to get through the inning. And I get it. I'm asking for a lot with 3 strikeouts to kind of get that, button up that inning. But yeah, if you're going to be the ace on this talented staff, those are the little things that kind of separate you from any other staff that's out there. And I think Chad and I have both agreed we'd put this staff up with the Dodgers and probably put them on top of the Dodgers in some cases. And some people would have them as the clear-cut number one. So if you're going to be that ace, you got to be able to do some of those little things right and get out of those innings before some of those bad things happen.
Emily, we saw Castillo, we saw Gilbert for the second time, and then Kirby for the second time. In this series, who were you most impressed with?
I would say, other than 6th inning, George Kirby. But only because I thought it was, well, first of all, it was kind of hilarious when he called that challenge and then won it. Nobody thought he was going to win that challenge. I'm pretty sure he had a little bit of a talking to when he got to the dugout. But I think after watching him last year and just watching him develop over the years, the biggest complaint we had about him for years was that he lived too much inside the zone. So he was giving up home runs. He was giving up hits. He really struggled to play with the edges of the zone. And I feel like we're starting to see him balance that out. But I mean, you can't not talk about what Luis did, right? In game 1. They saved him, kept him out of game 4 against the Guardians, so that Emerson Hancock was in there against, a tired Guardians team, hopefully tired Guardians team. Granted, I don't know that those people ever get tired. They just took the series from the Dodgers. So what do we know? But so they saved him to go against the Yankees in game 1. And I mean, he did everything they could have asked him to do. And, with a high powered Yankees team and a pitcher who can lean a little hard on, we know that Luis can give up home runs. I was a little bit concerned about that, but he did just absolutely stellar. But when I'm thinking about just with who I was most impressed by just to watch in these 3 games, I was just really excited to see George Kirby have more of an outing that we would have hoped for from him. But like you said, our rotation is one of the best in baseball, bar none. And other than what we were talking with Logan, and I do really feel like he's lacking that strikeout pitch. My friend Jamie and I were talking about that the other day. He's lacking that maybe a little bit more than he has in the past, but our rotation is so far doing a really good job.
I agree. I do think there's been some moments, there's no doubt, but I think overall they are really excelling. And I think that should get you a little bit excited, because knowing that the biggest issues are ones you think can be easy fixes. Of course. Chad, those fixes, right? With Cal and Julio and Josh, those are all the mainstays. Those are all the leaders in the room, the superstars in the room, right? The meat of the lineup. Does it have a stressful feeling knowing that you start the season at home? Now you go on the road. Is that maybe an easy way to just kind of lift it off your shoulders and just, hey, let's just play ball?
Well, I'd also say this team has played better on the road at times. So it'll be interesting to see what probably just demolish the ball. I hope they keep the lineup the same. It's I don't really like the tinkering things. I saw Pedro Martinez tweet something about the Mariners. I had to dive into his DMs. I'm okay, describe to me
Pedro's loving the M's, by the way, right now.
What's that?
Pedro's love. He is. Oh, yeah. I think there's a tweet a day about the M's from Pedro. I love it.
Yeah, and I have a signed photo of Pedro in my office right now. So huge fan. So as soon as I saw him talking about M's, I had to ask what would you change? Obviously not getting any kind of response, but when you look at this, like, it's just the middle of the lineup that hasn't produced yet. And the bottom of our lineup's looking like the top of our lineup. So there's a lot of good problems that we're going to have. Like what you said, Christian, is like, this is a good time for it to happen. Like we can continue to improve from here. Those guys, Emily, you said it too, is like those guys will actually, they're going to hit their stride. So I'm hoping there's going to be no changes. Like what would the change I would make? Maybe if I was Pedro and looking at just some responses and how would I respond to it, I'd look at finding a way to get Canzone into that 4-hole maybe. I mean, has the pop for it. He's finding barrel every single time. I like his approach at the plate. I'd give him an opportunity and maybe do a little bit of shifting right there. But outside of that, I think you just kind of keep it as is. I like what I see.
Overall, haven't been the best against lefties so far this season. That has been kind of a struggle we've seen. Ref Snyder hasn't been the best. They moved Donovan down the lineup. That's something you're going to see right off the bat. Detmers is going to be the pitcher on Friday for the Angels. The Angels have kind of had an up and down beginning of their season. They started off the season really hot, taking the first 2 from the Astros. And Mike Trout had kind of like a resurrection of his career to bring it back, kind of reminding us all that he was still around. Gavin, what's your overall thoughts on the Angels here and Reed Detmers being the starting pitcher out of the pen or out of the rotation for the first one?
I have noticed the same trend. The Mariners have struggled against lefties, and seeing Reed Detmers kind of makes it like, okay, like, are they going to game plan? Are we going to, because we're going down, it's going to be an away game. So hopefully that plays into our hand a little bit. But the Angels are always a wild card for the Mariners. On their down years, they find a way to snake a series from us. Hoping it's not this one, hoping this is the one that some guys gain some confidence and we're able to, hit the lefty and we're able to do the little things right and close it out. I think just from what we've seen so far and historically from this group of guys, I think we're going to get a good pitching duel, good pitching matchup throughout the whole series. We're just hoping that the hitters as a collective can step up. And if it's the bottom 4 guys that are hitting, that are supporting the runs, like we did see in the wins that we have had, it's been mainly the bottom of the order producing, or maybe not your 2, 3, 4 hitters. Even if it's that, I'm okay with that. So that's where I'm at with heading into this series is would like to see the statement series early in the year. We usually don't get that. We don't usually get a 3-game sweep early in the year. So would love to see that. However, a month from now, if we're sitting 500, I'm still not super worried.
I kind of like the fact that you're going south a little bit, the way that some of these players like in the middle of the lineup have been hitting the ball and they've been going to the warning track in Seattle. And you're like, man, if it was just a couple of degrees warmer, this one's out of the park. Feels like going down to play the Angels kind of feels like it's perfect. But last outing for Detmers, he went 4 2/3 innings. He allowed 6 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned runs, but he had 9 strikeouts as well. So
he looked good. I watched that start. It was fun. I was watching just on MLB Network, and it was, I mean, he was spotting all the corners. He was not missing. So it was one of those things. And then they got him late. I think it was a hit by pitch 1 inning, and then they kind of put together 2 or 3 hits. It was just one explosive inning. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun matchup, but you have to feel like you got Woo on the other side. We're going to be just fine.
And I know this is not the love take here to be a Mariners fan on a Mariners podcast, but does anybody like the fact that Mike Trout is actually showing a little bit of old school Mike Trout at the beginning of the season?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
As a fan of baseball, yes, absolutely. And yeah, we dislike the Angels with a passion as a Mariners fan, or I think most of us, maybe it's just me. But to see Mike Trout,
I don't dislike them as much as I hate the Astros.
Well, and just another class of 09 guy going after it. Yeah. Got to root for the guy.
I mean, he has a similar like trajectory to like Griffey almost. Obviously, I mean, at least he stayed on the same team, but he just ran to the injury bug at one certain time, right when he hit around 30. So the body starts falling apart.
I hate that comparison tracks so well. I hate that because that is so true. That is so true. When it's like the what could have been, when you think about that in the late 90s, early 2000s with Griffey, this is like that generation's. Wow. Ooh, okay. Well, to hopefully we don't get any more, bad comments on this one, us talking about Angels players. We move on here and talk about, not the class of 09, Gavin, but maybe somebody who was born in 09. No, I'm just kidding. Not that far. But Colt Emerson has been extended And wow, what a huge extension it was. And he wasn't born in 09. 20 years old, though, and he's going to be making some bank. On the 31st, he was signed to an 8-year, $95 million contract extension, the largest ever for a player before their MLB debut. This covers the 2026 to 2033 seasons. It also includes a 2034 club option, which is a full no trade clause and can exceed up to $130 million via some escalators, $95 million guaranteed. Signing bonus is $8 million. That structure, I'm going to give it to you real quick before we get this whole thought so all the viewers and listeners can get this, what they really need, the numbers, baby. 2026, you're only getting $1 million. 2027, go up to $2 million. Then it starts raising in 2028 up to $9 million. And then the rest of the years range from 12 to 18 per year until you get to that option. So you don't have to rush him, although that's more than the normal minor league salary. Don't get me wrong. $1 million, $2 million your first 2 years. You don't have to rush him. Although I do think we're going to see him eventually. Emily, what's your overall thoughts on Colt Emerson being the next extension and obviously being the shortstop or at least infielder of the future, we should say?
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely the infielder of the future for the Mariners. And, I was doing a little bit of research on this and, looking at some of these other guys who have ended up, with similar, obviously not quite that much, but I think one of the ones we were looking at was Jackson Chourio, right? Another one who had a really big contract before his MLB debut. And, what's interesting is one of the things that I mentioned in the little video I did yesterday, and I've heard a lot of people talking about, is that this is kind of a mutual gamble, mutual benefit, right? So you've got the Mariners betting on a player who has not shown up in the show yet, right? He's not made it to the big leagues. But you also got Colt Emerson, who knows likely that he's going to be one of the best, middle infielders, of his class and of his time. And so he's, there's every reality that if he shows up being the guy that we all think he's going to be, that he could make more money than this if he waited a couple of years and things went on, right? And the Mariners are gambling on him. And so I think that it, for lack of a better word, it's symbiotic across the board, right? When you just look at it from a business standpoint. But also I feel like the Mariners have always, one of the places that they have really, I mean, I hate to use the term put your money where your mouth is, because the Mariners haven't really spent that much money when you're really looking at it. But one place that they've really hammered down on and have been really successful is in their player development. And so I think it really just goes to show what the Mariners have done with that, to have a contract like this even be an option and be looked at mostly positively across the league, because they've developed Colt Emerson so well and they've built this history of developing players. And now he's going to be with us, for a long time. I had a little moment yesterday. I posted about it on Twitter that I realized that by the time he's no longer a Mariner, my youngest child will be a senior in high school.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had a little bit of like somebody get me my cane and walker, please. But yeah, he's going to be with the Mariners for a long time. And I'm really excited about it.
Speaking of the contract extension, and you talk about Jackson Chourio, it's very similar. There's no doubt. Colt Emerson's being 8-year, $95 million. Chourio's was 8 years as well. It's just $82 million in that deal. Jackson Chourio's turned out to be a really good player, with the fact that where we thought maybe he was going to be in the running for Rookie of the Year. Obviously, he's dealing with some injuries right now, but he's obviously been a great asset for the Brewers in his situation. When you think of this, I'm going to throw this at you, Chad. When you think of some of the Mariners players over the last couple of years that they've extended, Munoz, obviously Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez as well, and then now Colt Emerson, it seems like it's more of not just the performance of the player and not even maybe just like the future potential of the player, but more of like who they believe in as somebody who can be a core piece in this franchise and kind of lead this franchise. Doing that with a 20-year-old player, kind of believing in him all the way up to age 29 season, which is wild to think. That's pretty impressive coming from Jerry Dipoto and their staff.
No, yeah, you got to love to see it. And Jerry, especially early on as a GM, he would talk about draft, develop, and then trade. And then you hear as we've gone into this, year 8 of his tenure as a Mariner GM. Now it's in his most recent interview. I wrote it down the other day. I thought it was interesting. He said, draft, develop, extend. So it seems like that philosophy's shifting a little bit, which is nice. And you're seeing they did it earlier too with Evan White. Obviously, it didn't work out, but it's just the injury problems. The guy won a Gold Glove. He was a good player. The development was there. You saw he was a good player, and then his body fell apart. it just happens. So I don't think it's just bad luck right there. And I feel like you see everything from Colt Emerson during spring training. You see how he developed himself over the offseason too. It's just from last year in Everett, seeing pictures to like him in even in spring, his lower half bigger. I think there's a lot of good things happening. So you can tell he's got the work ethic there. He's got the brains. There's a lot of good things happening. It's really just a matter of just him getting on the field and that opportunity.
I'm going to go give a little hot take here. It might be a hot take. It might not. I don't know. But I feel like what we're seeing with some of these extensions over the last, I don't know, month or so, Pete Crow Armstrong from the Cubs, Cooper Pratt from the Brewers, of course, Colt Emerson as well. I know I'm missing a few, but I feel like a lot of these GMs, a lot of these front offices are trying to front load things because they fear a salary cap of some sort is coming in the near future and they want to get ahead of that. So good on the Mariners for obviously trying to do that as well. Speaking on that, if they are trying to get ahead of that, what does that mean, Gavin, for the pitching staff? Because there's obviously a few other players in here before we get to what this means for Colt Emerson extended and where he fits in the infield. What does that mean for guys like Logan Gilbert, guys like Brian Wu? There's obviously some issues here that you have to start thinking about. Jerry DiPoto came on and talked about some recent extensions about Logan and Wu. And he said, quote, "I can't tell you that there's any likelihood we'll get anything else done in the season, but it won't be because we're not interested. We're always an open door." What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, right now, and I love Logan Gilbert. He has been, in my opinion, one of the true aces. I've been firmly behind him. That's what she said. I've been firmly with him since his inception into the MLB and everything, and since he's been a Mariner. I was more higher on him than I was on George Kirby.
Just the pride and joy of Stetson, right?
The pride and joy of Stetson and
DeGrom country too.
Jacob DeGrom, Corey Kluber. Hey, they've produced some dudes over the years. But I've been very firm behind him. However, if we're going into salary cap territory, I'm curious on how that's going to shake down. You look at a team like the Dodgers and you're like, okay, how are they going to be cap eligible by any standard? So if you're looking at the Dodgers and they're a standard or they're going to be something of a standard, then now's the time to capitalize and get these big contracts and everything going, because there could be you have to be a certain threshold year by year until you work down into it over a 5-year period. That's I think when the NFL implemented that, I believe it was something similar where it was a cap down by year to get everybody in that same time in that same money frame. So very curious to see on who they go with. I would imagine if anything gets done, it might be with Brian Wu. In my opinion, that is your true ace. I've mentioned it multiple times on here. He is, for me, a top 5 pitcher in the MLB, and that's the guy that you definitely need to lock up long term. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Wu before Gilbert. And at the end of the day, if you go Wu and it's a big deal, there's a chance that you are walking away from Luis Castillo and Logan Gilbert within the next 2 years. And it's just unfortunately the way it is. But the draft, develop, and extend, like Chad was talking about, we got some dogs coming up already. I mean, in Double-A, you got Ryan Sloan and you got Kate Anderson. You need to continue to stockpile with elite arms. So I expect in the coming next 2 or 3 drafts, the top 5 rounds should showcase a handful of more pitchers.
Yeah, the pitchers in the minors aren't, I would say, not full, not a lot of depth, but like there are some top heavy elite ones in there ready to roll. And if you just hit on 1 or 2 of them, that's all you need, because you only need 5 or 6 to make a moving rotation, or I guess probably like 8 tops in a full season with injuries and things like that. So excited to see on that regard. Speaking of the potential of maybe losing a guy like Logan Gilbert or Luis Castillo in the near future, you might also lose a guy like JP Crawford in the near future because of this extension with Colt Emerson. Obviously, we're going to see JP Crawford maybe as soon as Friday's game against the Angels. We'll see if he's added to the roster. If he is so, I'm guessing that Ryan Bliss is the one that makes the move back down to AAA Tacoma. That's just my guess. But with JP Crawford potentially coming back up, there has been some announcements that he is still going to be the shortstop of this year. They're not going to rush Emerson in his development, but obviously you have to think, if you just invested $95 million into a 20-year-old kid before he can even go buy a 12-pack, that you obviously know that he's going to be inside that shortstop of the future potentially, or maybe playing third base like he has been in Tacoma while JP has playing short. What's your overall take on this, Emily? Do you think that Colt Emerson's the shortstop? Does he find himself in third base? What do you do with Brendan Donovan? There's a big lot of loaded questions of what you do for 2026 and beyond for the Mariners.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. I think that more than likely JP is going to be our shortstop this year, but I don't think we're going to see him in a Mariners uniform after this year. I think that this is his last year with us more than likely. I'd be really surprised if that's not the case. That said, I'm really curious how it's going to shake out at third base because I don't know that Brendan Donovan is your third baseman of any sort of long-term nature. I hope that he figures out some of the defensive stuff that we've seen. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was thinking about that today because, we've talked about this, like the log jam at, the left side of the infield, your shortstop, because he was, I guess, not Colt Emerson. Brandon Donovan was a second baseman for the most part when he was with the Cards. But, between second, third, and short, you've had this log jam. I don't really know how that's all going to shake out because, there's an argument to say that, Colt Emerson's defense is probably going to be superior to Brendan Donovan's at third base. But then what do you do with Brendan Donovan? Because you've got JP at short. And obviously Cole Young, you are not moving him off of our lineup anytime soon with the way that he's playing. So what does that look like? I don't know that really any of them are great platoon spots either. So to be totally honest, I'm not really sure how I think that's going to shake out, but I do think that with the amount of money that they've paid Colt Emerson and how much belief they have in him, I mean, again, we don't have to rush him. So there's no like timeline of having to get him up into Seattle, but I do think he's going to be up at some point. I think it's just going to be what is the catalyst for that happening? Is it going to be an injury? Is it going to be somebody really not performing? Like, yeah, I'm not sure.
Chad, assuming that there are no injuries, right? Let's take that outlier out of the window right now. And we're heading into the trade deadline. And maybe they're deciding to call Colt up then, or he already has, and there's got a decision to make. Is there a spot where we are sitting in a situation where there's just too many infielders and they got to make a move? And maybe a certain player, I don't know, Rivas, a JP Crawford, somebody gets traded for an elite arm and as a buyer to make that World Series run. Do you see a situation like that unfolding or maybe something different?
Well, I'm glad you asked me this question. I feel like at the deadline, I mean, it could be one of those things where technically now we're at a salary higher than last year. I don't know where Stanton's headspace is at right with spending. I don't know what that looks like at the deadline now, especially with the Colt extension. I wouldn't be surprised this year. Typical. Hopefully they look at a reliever that's not a huge cost. But I don't know if they're going to add a big contract at the deadline. I think that's what I'm kind of getting at here. And they're going to say, our big acquisition is calling up Colt, right? And how do they do that? Brandon Donovan, I mean, he's played over 250 innings over the last 3 years in the corner outfield spots. So there's spots for him. Specifically, like, does Refsnyder, does he become a little redundant if he's not producing in a more of a DH type role? I think that's where you see that change probably happen, is maybe it kind of becomes that thing at the deadline of you start trimming some of the veterans on a 1-year deal. Now $6 million we paid them though. So I think there's a long runway and it would probably have to take until that deadline, but maybe that's how they do it.
Let's end this one on a fun note, Gavin, shall we? Let's put you on the spot. That sounds fun. I would like you to predict the entire infield of the Seattle Mariners opening day 2027.
2027. Well, first I want to give my take on this year. I think that there's Chad, you hit it really close in my opinion. I think between Refsnyder and JP Crawford, there is a chance one of them is gone whenever they want to call up Emerson Hancock, or even if Colt Emerson is playing third base. I think at some point you're looking at Refsnyder or JP Crawford and you're seeing if anybody can bite down on some of the money or all the money, and you just take whatever you can get back. Or if you can get something back, awesome. If you can get a top 30 prospect for one of those guys, great. However, yeah, you're looking at not taking Brendan Donovan out of this lineup. And if JP Crawford's not producing, then it is what it is. Now, Jerry Dipoto and this organization has backed JP Crawford through some very dark times. There was, I believe it was 2022 offseason, 2023 offseason, where there was Trey Turner, there was Dansby Swanson, Carlos Correa. All of them were free agents. And Jerry said, nope, this is my shortstop. We're sticking with him. So there's a lot of times that we've gassed this guy up, and rightfully so. I love JP Crawford. He has been through the dark days with us, and he has produced at a very good level. But when it's time to win a World Series, is JP Crawford going to be the one that helps us out? I think in the dugout, 100%. You want that guy on your team. He is a glue guy, no doubt about it. But if Colt Emerson emerges and he is this Bobby Witt type shortstop or Kevin McGonigal type shortstop, you got to run with what's going to help you win the World Series, because at the end of the day, that's the goal, and that should be the goal. That I don't know why that would be anything else but that. Getting to your question though, I wanted to talk about the 2027 infield. Yeah, it's a fun question, but it's a tough question. Obviously, Naylor's locked down at first base. I think at that point in time, you're looking at Colt Emerson as your shortstop. I don't know. I mean, this is ever since I've seen Cole Young in Double-A and more, his arm is not as good as I thought it was going to be, and the way he throws the ball.
Did you see that play today?
Oh, he makes it. He's a great defensive second baseman. But when you got a guy like Michael Arroyo pushing the needle as well, it just begs the question of who else can offer this infield some great stuff. And Michael Arroyo, I know he's playing in a little bit in the outfield, so I'll go crazy and just say that there's a chance that you got Michael Arroyo at second base. If not, obviously, Cole Young. The organization's in love with Cole Young. So I want to give my hot take and who I think would be in the infield. However, understanding Jerry and how much they love Cole Young, it's probably going to be Cole Young. And then Brendan Donovan at third base, unless they decide to make a move in the offseason or so. I don't think they're going to make any major transaction. There's no going to pay $25 million for a third baseman. Obviously, we've had the opportunities. We just won't do it. So I think Brendan Donovan is your third base. I think you're looking at a very similar infield with the addition of Colt Emerson.
And there's going to be a lot of questions when that comes around too, because you already talked about a few other prospects coming up that are going to be fighting for those spots. Man, this is fun time. What a good problem to have, that you have all these prospects fighting, and you still are a team that can be seen as a World Series contender. It's usually one or the other, and Seattle's sitting in a very special spot, sitting in both. I love that. All right, before we make more office quotes and get out of here, thank you so much for listening to Hold My Trident, a Seattle Mariners podcast. Really appreciate everyone stopping by. We have a fun episode coming out for you on Friday. We're going to dig into some of those prospects. A fun new segment called Farm Fridays. Be sure to check that out. And then, of course, we'll be digging into the Angel series that begins on Friday night. Be sure to check out Hold My Trident, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on audio. I thank you. For Emily, Chad, Gavin, I'm Christian. We'll see you back here next time, right here on Hold My Trident.